Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Beyond Breakfast. We're in the middle of Rav Dessler's Geulah and Galut and Geulah, and we're talking about the role of rectification, that these exiles are not just random, but they have a very specific purpose, and that purpose is to undo that which Adam did not do. He unfortunately was unable to elevate and choose a higher version of himself, and he made a choice that ended up forcing him to become more material and less connected to the spiritual. We spoke about how the patriarchs yesterday were involved in undoing this deficiency that Adam brought to the world. And not only, it wasn't enough for it to be on an individual level, the actual bigger goal, and this is brought down a lot in the Ramchal, Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, that the ultimate goal was for it to bring this concept of tikkun, fixing, of rectification to not just the individuals, but to the world. And that would happen with a nation. And that nation would start with the 12 tribes. And this is what Rav Dessler says. He says, the true rectification of creation as a collective began with the 12 tribes. They told their father Yaakov, just as there is only one in your heart, so too there is only one in our hearts. That's the Gemara Pesachim. The Maral in Kavod Hashem says, through the combined service of all the sons, they reached a collective perfection equal to Yaakov's own level. Even though Yaakov as an individual was more perfect than any one of them on an individual level, but collectively, each one, a different branch, part of a tree, was able to achieve what Yaakov achieved. This was the first emergence of the idea of kalal, a national identity rooted in holiness. He also explains, as the Maharal, that when they reached the number 70 souls, they attained a level of collective wholeness even higher, as the number 70 represents total completeness. 7 represents the highest expression of a system, 7 days of the week. That's the system we're talking about. That's the material world. And the meshing with that material world, Shabbat is not just material, it is also spiritual. And therefore, part of what's happening over here is elevating the physical and merging it with the spiritual. We see the number 70 in so many different places. We have 70 Shivim Panim LaTorah, Shivim Zikenim. There are 70 judges of the Sanhedrin. There are 70 nations of the world. The meaning 70 is the comprehensive integration of all perspectives and aspects. 70 faces of the Torah, 70 elders, 70 different perspectives, which together arrive at a full truth through depth of intellectual inquiry. Truth is fully realized only through the combination of all legitimate views, truth in its entirety, which means any one truth is not an expression of the ultimate truth. There are truths, but not the ultimate truth. You see this in the Gemara. The Gemara will bring down a whole bunch of opinions that it will reject. It's doing this because it's trying to teach us that you can have an aspect to a truth, but you could have 4 or 5 different opinions of Beit Hillel, Beit Shammai, and Elu ve'elu divrei Elokim Chaim. They're both true. So Rav Dessler continues, he says, truth is fully realized only through the combination of all legitimate views. Truth isn't in its entirety. 70 nations represents the division of all humanity into distinct spiritual archetypes. I like to believe that each person has a sliver of truth, and if we all had humility, we'd recognize that I don't have the whole truth, but if I'm humble enough, I could open myself up to hearing you and maybe learn about a new truth. When each nation clings to the impure aspect of its nature, together, they represent the entire structure of spiritual impurity, the opposite of holiness. So when we are, our natural nature is to be selfish. It's to be someone who is only thinking about themselves and not really caring for anybody else. It takes effort and work and refinement to kind of think about beyond the self. So the term 70 souls, who descended to Egypt, signifies a collective identity, a level of nationhood, an am. However, the complete level of nationhood is 600,000. It was only upon reaching this wholeness, and that's when the Jews were about to leave Mitzrayim. It was only upon reaching this wholeness that the Jewish people merited the exodus from Egypt and receiving the Torah. When the house of Jacob reached this klal collective status, they descended into the Egyptian exile. To fully be metaken, to rectify the sin of Adam and Rishon on a collective level, they had to be tested to determine whether their spiritual attainment and connection to holiness were truly rooted within them. This was the purpose of the Egyptian exile, to challenge their spiritual completeness and holiness by immersing them in an environment of extreme impurity, right? That's the counterweight necessary for growth. They denied heaven. They worshipped animals, believing their ancestors were reincarnated in them, communicated with spirits and demons, and used wisdom to enslave nature to fulfill their earthly desires. Kochot HaTumah. They were deeply involved in lust and immorality, and their intellectual prowess was immense, as reflected in the verse. This is a pasuk from Malachim. Solomon's wisdom surpassed that of all the people of the East and all the wisdom of Egypt. As explained earlier, every exile is suited to the character and the spiritual level of the generation. We spoke of that a few days ago. So to correspond to this great spiritual potential of the house of Jacob, the Egyptian exile had to match it in intensity. A land steeped in the 49 gates of impurity, opposing the 49 gates of understanding, of Bina, which represent the depth of holiness. Egypt, in this sense, represents the chariot of impurity, the inverse of divine chariot of holiness. This was the extremely intense trial. The impure Egyptians held total dominion over the Israelites. They enslaved and oppressed them harshly. Yet, Bnei Israel did not assimilate. Chachamim taught us that in Mitzrayim, they did not change their names, they did not change their language, did not change their clothing. That means they remained spiritually distinct. They didn't change their identity, which was represented by their names. They maintained unity through their language, which connects individuals into a people. And even in their external appearance, they preserved the look of a Jew. They didn't imitate or try to resemble the Egyptians in any way, even superficially. They remained faithful to their spiritual identity despite the environment, and his loyalty laid the foundation for their redemption. This is the beginning of the end. And then as they were going to come out of that, that furnace, right? The crucible, where they were pouring in that hot metal and forging that steel, we were going to take this rectification of fixing the midot of Adam Rishon and bring it with us into the world as a nation, and then begin to change the world. We made some changes, but we were never really finished our mission. We believe our mission is still a long way to go, and hopefully with the arrival of Mashiach and the beginning of the Geulah, we will see that mission come to its complete. Bezrat Hashem, tomorrow we'll go to part 10 and talk about the high spiritual aspirations that we're trying to get to. This 50 levels of Kedusha, 50 levels of understanding. Wishing you all an amazing day.